guys, so really quick before we start this video, I know that this video is long, but I'm telling y'all, there's a lot of great information in here from all 5 speakers. I was trying my hardest to get a little bit of everyone, but I actually think I did it. I think I got majority of each of the speakers, and I am super excited about it because there's a lot of wonderful information in this video. So, hey guys, welcome back to Mrozinski Family Homestead. Obviously,
Take 3.
Yeah, obviously I can't work my camera this morning. Watch out for these curves. I don't even think I'm in the camera now.
We're like in the foothills of the mountains, so there's a lot of windy roads.
Wait a minute, let's see. Yeah, I am recording. Okay, so we do have footage now. Alright guys, so we are on our way to Southeast Homestead Meetup. We are super excited because there's supposed to be some great other homesteaders talking, and we are always willing to learn new things and listen to new people. So, Steven, where in the world are we at?
We're at the old country store right there.
Oh, I see something about Black Stock Market. We're gonna get lost.
No, we ain't.
Alright, so we're gonna head on down the road, and I can't wait to get there. Learn new things.
Good, awesome. Well, I'm glad that each and every one of y'all came and showed up to hear a bearded guy talk. As I mentioned to several others earlier, I don't have a script, so if I go completely off key, somebody flag me down, okay? I think we'll be good. But I just wanted to kind of introduce everybody that's going to be just helping, that kind of help put this together. Welcome each and every one of y'all here. I think everybody here right now is from South Carolina, right? So this was kind of an idea that I had, as well as a couple other people had, that we kind of talked about at Homesteaders of America back in October. Then, I don't know about y'all, but COVID happened at our house. So that kind of changed a few different things in regards to what you're juggling, what you're dealing with, all that kind of stuff. And then we had the conversation continually throughout the winter, and I'm glad that we kind of were able to finally put all this together for everybody to come. And thank y'all for coming, and especially on a Memorial Day weekend. I didn't realize this was Memorial Day weekend when Will and I were initially talking. We said today, yeah, this will work. And it's like, hang on, that's Memorial Day weekend. So thank y'all for giving up a long weekend to be able to come and just hang out with some fellow homesteaders and folks, and as we talk about a variety of different things. So I just want to kind of tell y'all a little bit about who we are and what we're thinking. And you know, one of our key things is to connect each and every person here. And for that to be a local connection, I think that's key. I know that some of the other events that I've gone to that were larger, they're really, really cool, and you get to meet people from all over the country. You do run into people who are local too, but you kind of lose that connection. You know, people who do things in California are a little bit different than things that happen here, right? Yeah. A little bit, or things that even happen in Virginia are a little bit different than happen here. And even if you're in the same zone, it might be a little bit different. That plus making those connections with people. I was talking with someone last night, and they were like, yeah, we have so many chickens right now. You know, we're literally having to either throw them away or give them to animals, etc., because we can't use them all. Well, hey, maybe you know somebody else who could use some of that, and you can kind of partner together to be able to do that. So again, just the biggest thing is for us to be local, and for us to improve the way of living, and for us to always put family first. I know that's key for my family, as well as a lot of other people here, and just making sure that family is most important. With everything else that's crazy going on right now, which we definitely do not want to have a conversation about that, for sure. But with everything else going on, it's very important for us to be able to handle things and do things locally, and to take care of our families first. Okay? So y'all just remember that throughout the day. And we appreciate feedback too. I think that's another key thing. When I was typing all this stuff up, I got my proofers to proof it, which means my oldest child and my wife. And they said, you did a typo on this. You put family, not family. I was like, no, it's supposed to be that. And they're like, people aren't going to even know what that is. So basically that's, you're so close as friends that it feels like family. So we want to build those relationships and make sure that those are key locally and also regionally. Farm, we want to grow people to grow more for themselves, right? What pretty much every one of us do in a variety of different ways. Some grow probably more than they need in the next 10 years, but they're working on ways to kind of partner and barter with those kinds of things too, making those connections. So that's key. And then freedom. We're thankful for those who have sacrificed ahead of us so that we can have the freedom that we have. And we want future generations to be able to enjoy that freedom too. So that's key to us in regards to everybody partnering together. So I say meet the team. These are kind of three folks that we've kind of been FaceTiming here or there, brainstorming about how to put this stuff together. And I just want to kind of introduce them. I didn't introduce myself at first, but I'm Matt Dean. We live in the Lakelands area of South Carolina, and we have 6 kids, and we have Dean Family Acres, and we're on 5 acres. So sometimes that's just enough, sometimes it's not nearly enough. Y'all know what I'm saying when I say that, right? In regards to who else is here, Will Shillinglaw is right here. Will has Dixie Meadows farm, and Will is kind of in the north central part of South Carolina, right off I-77. And in regards to farming, gardening, that kind of thing, he knows what he's doing. He might not be willing to get up here and talk to you in regards to a group, but if you've got a question about gardening or farming or anything like that, he's the man. I wish I could figure out at least a pinch of what he does. He has not surrendered to landscaping fabric like I have in regards to weeding. He would much rather be out there a couple hours every day making sure he doesn't have weeds. But again, Will Shillinglaw, thank you to him for helping. And then Ronnie Williams is over here. Ronnie's from Early Bird Farm SC, and he's kind of in the same general area, north central part of kind of Lancaster County region. And he's been another influential person, and from all the people I've kind of met through Facebook and other social media to this point of homesteading locally, he and I probably connect on the most things in regards to just trees and even landscaping aspect and those kinds of things. If we get on, actually, if any of the 3 of us get on the phone, it's probably going to be a 45-minute conversation, even though we don't mean for it to be. So, and those are just connections that we've been able to make just through social media. And again, there's a lot of really, really good stuff on social media, and that's what we want to focus on. So, all right, so today's presenters are up here. Again, I emailed out a lot of this information, but I think it's helpful just for people to have and know. I'm doing no more presenting than what I'm doing right now, but if I didn't put my picture up there, it wouldn't look somewhat symmetrical. Thank you for the word. So I had to, that's the only reason I'm up there. We've got Megan Height from Living the Height Life, Ronnie Williams from Early Bird Farms SC, Jason and Robin from Big Bear Homestead. They'll be coming in at about 11 o'clock because they have a family milk cow, and they're from Georgia, so again, give them a hard time. And then Shelly and Heinz Gromer, they were going to be talking about fermenting and overcoming the fear of fermenting. And so they will actually be down here during the second one. And then Dave and Ashley Bentley here. Restrooms are up the hill. If you're a male, do not knock out the plug that's up there. That's how we have power, okay? So just be careful of that. Otherwise, it's up the hill. Thank y'all again so much for coming. It means a lot to see that this many people care and want to connect with each other. So now we're going to break out into session 1. And I'm just going to give kind of a short intro. in regards to who these folks are, and then they can kind of expand on that, because I don't want to take, they might have a 3-page intro about talking about themselves when you get over there. I'm just kidding, they won't. But I don't want to steal any of their thunder. So Dave and Ashley Bentley, they're from Blessed Bentley Homestead, and they're very active on Instagram. And that's how I actually met Dave, and we started talking about a couple of different things, and I think we have a lot in common as well, and encourage each other a lot, which is great. I said the Sand Hills region of South Carolina. Is that pretty accurate? Yeah, that's right. Okay. Everybody kind of has their own definitions. I say lakelands, and people are like, hang on, there's a lot of lakes in South Carolina, so so they're in the Sand Hills region, and they're going to be talking about animals specifically on the homestead. So if that interests you, then I would strongly encourage you to check out their session. They're actually going to kind of be on the back side of the picnic shelter area, and you can check out their session and definitely learn a lot more about animals. And those kinds of things. And then Megan Height from Living the Height Life. They're from the PD region of South Carolina. And they are actually talking about homesteading off-grid. So I've actually visited their homestead before. They legit are doing things off-grid. I've encouraged Megan multiple times to let Kenneth take a break and hire someone to clear out some trees. Kenneth, I'm still trying, buddy.
You have to try harder.
Yeah, they will talk about that and just their journey and moving from a variety of different places as well. But talking specifically off-grid and starting from raw land. So if that's something that interests you, they'll be right here. So y'all be sure and just kind of stay in this general area. I think what we'll do is just break out now. This first session will run until about 10:30, and then we'll have that breakout where y'all can kind of just interact. If you want to hang out in your session and keep talking and have questions, that's totally fine. Or if you want to break out and go into the small groups, then that's totally fine too. All right. So thank y'all so much. Appreciate it. Again, Megan will be here, and Dave and Ashley will be on the other side of the picnic shelter. Thank y'all.
Hi! So for those of y'all who don't follow me on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, I'm Megan. Nice to meet all of y'all. My family and I, my son Declan, husband Kenneth down there, we live off-grid in the PD region of South Carolina, Marlboro County to be specific. We recently bought 16 acres in August. Before that, we lived off-grid in our RV, a travel trailer that we have that's 40 feet long, traveling the United States. So we've been off-grid in national forest, BLM land, just living literally off the grid traveling for 2 years. So that's where we got our feet wet, learning how to off-grid. We'll let him go past so y'all can hear me. We do have solar power. That's probably the #1 question we get is solar power. So that's how we were able to live off-grid and travel throughout the different national forests and BLM lands. And then I was just going to talk to y'all today about what off-grid actually is. There's a lot of misconceptions about what off-grid means to different people. And then we're going to go over how we do off-grid and then how you could do off-grid if you wanted to. Who here is already off-grid besides them? Because I know they are. That's it? That's awesome. Who wants to go off-grid? Yes! Okay, we have some off-grid converts coming then. Okay, so first we're going to talk about what is off-grid. There are actually 3 main types of off-grid living that most people don't think about. So you can be off-grid as in off your utility bills. That's the main one people think about. You're off power, you're off like city water, city sewage. You don't have any utility bills. I explain that to people as in I can pick up my life and travel to Colorado and I don't have to disconnect anything from anybody. I don't have power that needs to be shut off. I don't have, natural gas that has to be shut off. I don't need to call a cable company or nothing like that. I can just pick up and move wherever I want, whenever I want. Okay, so that's your first off-grid. Second off-grid would be off of the medical grid, is what they call it. So you don't have health insurance. You don't have standing doctor's appointments. You don't have yearly checkups, people like that. If you have a medical condition, you can't go medically off the grid. That's one thing. You don't have to do all 3 to be off-grid. There's different points and different ways you can do it. So for my family, we don't do do medical insurance. We don't do yearly health exams. We don't have standing appointments, but we do go to the hospital if we need it. I am a nurse by profession, so I do believe in the medical system. I'm a pediatric nurse, but we just don't rely on it. So technically we are medically off the grid. The third off-grid that people don't think about a lot is financially off the grid. That means you don't use banks, you don't take out loans, you don't have credit cards or anything like that. Nobody can financially trace your location. This is the off-grid most people think about when they think of like Criminal Minds, when Garcia's like, he went off the grid. It's because they can't trace you financially. If you're all three, you are amazing. But I don't know anybody who is off-grid, off all three grids. So we are not. We are only off the utility grid and off of the medical grid. We still use banks, we still do credit cards, we don't do loans, but we try to pay it cash if we can. So those are the three different off-grids. And then how we off-grid ourselves. We live in a travel trailer. It's 40 feet long, Forest River. It's got 2 bedrooms. Declan has his own room, so it's kind of fancy. We have a solar system, so we have 550 watts of solar power, and then 4 6-volt golf cart batteries as the golf cart goes by. And that powers all of our basic needs. If we need anything extra, if I want to use my Instant Pot, if we just need to run extra power for some reason, we'll turn on our generator. So we have a generator as backup. We do want to expand our solar eventually in the future, but we are also cutting back on how much power we need. So we are still continually to learn more things about how we can cook outside better and how we can use fire better instead of relying on our propane stove inside. And then for water, we do rainwater catchment. So we have a 200-gallon rainwater catchment system that is set up on our rabbit colony, and that does awesome. I don't know if y'all got rain where y'all were in South Carolina the past few days, but it stormed and our barrels are overflowing full of rainwater. So that is amazing. Another one we get is how do we use the bathroom? Everybody wants to know how you do that off-grid. We have composting toilets. They're super simple. They don't have to be fancy. You can buy actual handbooks on how to do composting toilets. My favorite is the Human Manure Handbook. A lot of third world countries do composting toilets as a normal, natural thing. Our relief agencies, American Red Cross and everything, will build composting toilets and take it to their countries, but nobody really does it over here. We learned about composting toilets in the RV world. A lot of RVers who go off-grid do composting toilets. And so to make it safe, we do let waste and everything compost for a year. It doesn't go in our vegetable garden. It's got its own little area so that it's all safe. It's not hard to deal with. It doesn't stink. So that is always a great way to go. And then for gray water, which is like your shower water, your sink water, wash water is what it's considered. We pour that onto our compost bin, our vegetable compost bin, and it will compost with that. And it keeps the compost nice and moist. If anybody knows anything about compost, you're supposed to wet it down. We just use our gray water. So we try to double everything up. The main thing about off-grid is you want as much redundancy as you can get. Everything needs a backup to your backup. We do propane for our stove. We have propane to cook. We also have mini propane systems if we need it. We have firewood set up. We can cook outside. I have all the equipment to cook outside. So you just need backups to your backups to your backups. Everything you want to have multiples of. And so the main reason we chose off-grid, we were off-grid traveling and everything, but we were in Iowa 2 winters ago, and I don't know if y'all remember, but Texas froze. Like, froze solid. People were freezing to death in their homes because the power company shut their power off. My parents live in Texas. That was the scariest time for me. And I decided I would never live like that. We were done. I would not rely on a power company to provide my power. I would not rely on a water company to have water for my family. My child's life is more important than that. So instead, we went the route of off-grid. We traveled. We come to South Carolina on a job. I was working at Charlotte, North Carolina in the Children's Hospital there. It's a great children's hospital. We stayed in South Carolina and we never left. So that's how we landed here. We were actually staying in Blacksburg, not far from here, and we're just searching across the entire state to find our property. And we found 16 acres of raw land in the PD region, but it didn't have anything on it, except for trees and a swampy area. So from August to November 1st, we hand cut trees to be able to make a driveway to get our RV on. If y'all have seen that YouTube video, we literally just had enough space for our RV and that was it. We didn't have anything else cleared. From November 1st until today, we have cleared the rest of our driveway. It's 250 feet. It is now gravel, so you can get up and down it with no issues. We have a separate spot for our RV that is not on the gravel driveway. We have a meat rabbit colony that doubles as our rainwater catchment and our food source. We have a 2,500 square foot garden that we rely on for food. We have meat chickens, layer chickens, and we have goats. And all in like 6 months by hand. We don't have tractors, we don't have anything, it just takes hard work. So how can you live off grid? Anybody who lives on grid wants to learn how to live off grid, start where you're at. The first thing we switched out was our coffee maker. I don't know about y'all, but I can't go without coffee. And coffee makers draw a ton of power. If you're gonna put one on a solar system, you're gonna eat up your power bank in no time. Ours, even our 550 watts, if we have nothing but our coffee maker on, it will shut off before our coffee pot is brewed. Just don't, it ain't worth it. So find a different alternative. Our alternative we currently do is we boil water and use a French press. Works great. Doesn't take any longer than a coffee pot. All it takes time is to boil water and then you let it soak in the French press for 3 minutes and it's done. So that's an easy fix. Another one is a microwave. We got rid of our microwave. If I need to heat something up, it needs to be on the stove or in the oven. We don't cook with a microwave. Popcorn can even be done on the stove or outside over a campfire. So that's another one that is a high draw of power. Now fridge and freezers, people tend to think of as high draw powers, and they're actually not. A freezer you can run on solar power with no issues. Especially a deep freezer. If it's full, it takes less power. So deep freezers you can have. We have 2 fridge and freezers on our small solar system. 550 watts is not nothing. I mean, some people out there have 12,000 watt systems for their houses. We don't even have 1,000 and we can do it on 2 fridge and freezers. So don't worry about that. But other things you're thinking, vacuum cleaners use a lot of power. So learn to sweep your floors instead. I sweep carpet, it works great. If we want to use the vacuum, we can use it on our solar, but if we're running a whole lot of other things, then we may have to recharge our batteries if it's not a sunny day. And that's where your generator comes in as a backup. So if it's a cloudy day, if it's wintertime and it's snowing, which we get on the rare chance in South Carolina, especially where we're at, then you may have to run your generator for a bit. But that's okay. That just lets you know, hey, I'm using too much power, I need to start looking at what I'm using and I need to cut back. But where you're at, if you're in a grid-tied house, just start cutting back on your power. Start noticing what you're using and how much power it uses. So TVs, we have a TV, we have 1 TV, we have 2 computers, and then we run our lights, and that's about it for a daily basis besides our 2 fridge and freezers on our power. If we need to run more than that, like I said, I do have an Instapot. It's great for summer cooking because we don't have AC. It can get hot. Open some windows. We have some fans running right now. Luckily in the summer you get more power because there's more sun out. So you can run the extra fans that you won't be running in the winter. For winter, I highly suggest wood stoves. We do not have one yet. We're running all of our heat off propane and that is expensive. Propane you can use, you're not considered grid tied because it's a prepaid service. So that's with our phones. We don't have a phone company, we use prepaid phones. Straight Talk is our favorite, we've had them for years. You don't even technically have to give them your name or anything when you sign up. You can be completely anonymous and it's a $45 plan, you can buy you a card at Walmart. If you ain't got the money 1 month, you're fine. For our internet, we use a hotspot. We have a phone. I upload YouTube videos. It's very slow. It takes an entire day to upload a video, but it works off the grid. I know some people like to go for that satellite internet when they live off grid, but technically you're still grid tied then. It's just a different type of grid. Somebody just took the grid and moved it up into space. So with our hotspot, it's again prepaid. I can pick up and move, and there's nothing tied me down to that location. I can decide I don't want to pay internet this month, and no big deal. I just don't have internet for that month because it's all prepaid services. So we don't do anything that ties us to an electric company. Our power company does not know our names. They don't know our address. They don't know where we're at. We have had the county come out, and it will vary by mileage depending on where you are in South Carolina, but a lot of counties don't even require you to have permits in South Carolina to build because you're considered a cabin in the woods, a hunting cabin. You're not considered a house if you're not tied to the utility grid. The inspector told us their main thing is to make sure you are safe with your utilities. We don't have utilities, so there's not much he can do for us. So check with your county enforcers. If you want to build a cabin on raw land, you can do it most places in South Carolina without even needing a building inspection. So that is always nice. You don't have to do it. We are working on building us a cabin, so if you're not following our YouTube, you can see the process and how we go through that. But we are going to build a 600 square foot house. We're staying small. We like our small. It's much easier to manage off-grid. If you can do small, stay small. It takes less to heat, takes less to cool, and you can just do it easier. Who has a question? Anybody? What's your question?
So you're building the cabin, you say it doesn't need an inspector. I've heard that you need to use special wood, that it has to be kiln dried or whatever, a certain moisture percentage. Does any of that matter?
Technically no, since it's not inspected. We will be using it just for longevity of the house, but in South Carolina, and I've looked into it, even if you need your house inspected, if you have the inspector come out and verify you have woods on your property, you can use wood that is milled from your property. Even when you need a building inspection, you just have to have proof that the wood come from your property and then it was cut correctly. But technically, if you don't need a building inspection, none of that matters. You just want to make sure your house is safe to live in. And so just follow whatever makes you feel safest about it. Anybody else? Do you have a question? Anybody? No?
So I have a question.
Yes.
Are you officially going all like water? Come here. Are you officially going so you're not doing the well anymore?
Oh, okay. So the one thing I didn't cover, if you have been following our YouTube channel, we attempted to put in a shallow well here in South Carolina. The theory holds our water table's high. You should be able to pump water from the ground in South Carolina. And we did it, but you pump a very slow amount. It is like ridiculous slow because you need pockets of water to hit to be able to get the well. And in South Carolina, all of our ground is sandy and the water just kind of flows throughout and there's not a big pocket of water. You kind of need clay for that. And we don't have a whole lot where we're at. We are more coastal, we're headed towards the beach, and most of our land is nothing but sand. As for a deep well pumps pull a ton of power. A ton of power. If you want to do a deep well off-grid, the best option you have is to put a holding tank on your property, run your generator to pump the water up into the holding tank, and then you can use a smaller pump to get it from the tank into the house. The smaller pump can run on solar. That deep well pump is going to take a massive solar system to run because it pulls a lot of power. Currently, we are just on rainwater. We are really good at conserving our water that comes from living in an RV. Our inspectors told us it takes each person about 120 gallons a day per person when you live on the grid. We go through about 40 gallons for 3 people every 3 to 4 days. So we have drastically cut our water usage. It's not hard. Just cut the water off when you're in the shower, just rinse off, cut it off. Wash, then cut it back on, rinse off, cut it off. Like we just really are really careful about how much water we use when we're washing dishes, washing ourselves. I drink a ton of water. I probably drink about 1 gallon of water a day, so that's where most of that water usage goes. So you can do it, you just have to watch your water usage. And because we have composting toilets, our toilets don't use water, so that's one expense we don't have to worry about.
And toilets use a ton of water.
Toilets use a lot of water. A lot of water. People don't think it, but it's like almost 1 gallon of water every time you flush your toilet. So you're using a ton of water, and we don't have to worry about that. So that is much easier for us. What other questions you may got?
Where'd you go to? I mean, we're real new on this, so
Okay.
I mean, and just wondering at least to start with like solar backup. Kind of a redundancy to being on the grid, but
Yeah.
in case it fails, then to move eventually off. Where do you start? I mean,
That one is really hard too because we had to do a whole lot of researching. Kenneth actually built our solar system. So any questions he might be able to answer better when we break out into small groups. I don't know a whole lot about it, but we did a whole lot of internet researching to get to where we're at. But it's hard. It is really hard to try to figure out. Anybody wants that, we use Renogy, that's our main like solar panels and stuff, and they have been a great brand. We've had them for 2 years. We traveled across the country, taking them up mountains, into deserts. I mean, they've been whacked with trees and everything else, and they have held up fantastic. So I do recommend the Renogy solar panels, and they're not expensive. We just have 550 watts, 5 100 watts, and 1 50-watt panel. Because they do that. They just turn their power off and you put solar panels up. Because some locations require you to be grid tied. I don't know of any in South Carolina, thank goodness, but some in the United States require you to be hooked up to a power company. South Carolina, all you need is a septic permit. You don't have to put in the septic, you just gotta have a permit to do anything with raw land. We have found that out the hard way. Once you got the permit, you're good for 5 years. You can do whatever you want on your property as long as you keep that permit for 5 years. After 5 years, if you need anything else, you have to renew your permit or get a septic. Which a septic is a great option for off-grid. It don't require any power. But we just don't need one. If we use a septic, it would be just for gray water. That'd be our only septic system use because composting toilets don't use septic. And once you go to a composting toilet, most people don't go back to a flushing toilet. There's just no point.
We got a great.
Are living their best life up until the point where we take it and sustain our family through it. So we have a 20-acre farm in Jefferson. 10 acres of that is pasture, fenced in pasture land. So we allow our critters to just roam that pasture, live their best life, keeping it well trimmed so it doesn't get too tall. HOA is good to go with that. But you know, we got cows. Let me just go through the list. So we got rats and pigeons. We have quail, chickens, and kind of ducks and turkeys. Does that cover all the fowl?
Yes.
Okay. We've got 3 cows, 2 Holstein cows and a Jersey cow. We have 8 goats, the Nubian and what are the other breeds? Savannah goats. One of them is in milk right now, so it's a twice daily practice for my beautiful and talented wife. She gets to milk Savannah. If you've ever had goat cheese from a freshly milked goat, that is about the best you can get. We've got 3 pigs. We have Berkshire pigs, which is a heritage breed of pig. It's a pretty popular pig, I'd say. It's not as widely well known as like the Cooney Coons, but it's a great pig. At full size, they'll get up to 600 pounds. They've got black hair with white spots on the face and feet, sometimes on the tail. Got a boar and a sow that will breed together and make little baby piglets at some point. And we've got a cut male porky who we're just raising up until we harvest him. We've got 2 donkeys, well 3 donkeys, but one of the baby donkey we're selling next month or so. Use them just for livestock protection, prevention. They're fearless animals. And I mean, they will take down a coyote if it's dumb enough to come up with them.
We also use livestock guardian dogs too.
Yeah, we've also got 2 livestock guardian dogs. One is more mature than the other. One is still a puppy, and she's learning the ropes slowly but surely, very slowly. Very slowly. And we have an 8-month-old colt that we just got. His name's Casper. She's got her hands full with trying to teach him how to be his best horse. He's a freeloader. Total waste of resources.
I had to talk him into getting it since he doesn't contribute to the farm.
But happy wife, happy life, as they say. So we bit the bullet, and we've got a great deal on it. I mean, 8-month-old, so he doesn't have any work put into him, and he's going to have to be trained. It's going to be a year or more before he can be ridden. So it'll be fun. He's a super sweet horse.
Donkey?
Nope.
Horse.
Nope.
Was it sheep?
It was sheep and goats.
There you go.
There you go.
And
And the next one, and say again?
the egg. Is that the one you're gonna ask?
The egg. Oh yeah. Yeah, I've got some more stickers. So who can guess the breed of chicken that is the most prolific egg layer?
Death layer.
The white one.
The what?
White leghorn. That's
The
correct.
white leghorn.
They do almost an egg a day.
So, there's been one that was recorded to do 7 eggs in one day.
That's crazy.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, old foghorn leghorn. I said. Look up, son. Let's see, what's some more trivia? Since we're wrapping up. First domesticated bird.
Pigeon.
I can do multiple if that's easier.
Nope. Close though.
Parrot.
Nope.
Guinea.
So livestock domesticated. Let's put it that way. Livestock domesticated bird.
Too common.
No, it was not the chicken. That's what my guess was.
I thought it was the chicken too.
Quail.
Nope.
The duck.
No, but it's close.
Plus,
Goose.
yes,
No one had a
the goose was the first domesticated bird.
No one had a dove. It was domesticated.
It was a dove. That's fine. All right.
All right. And just some ending trivia or ending fun fact. About 1,000-pound cow on a given day will eat 2% of its body weight. So that's 20 pounds of grass, which is basically once you've mowed a push mower for a full day and you've filled up the bag, that's maybe 20 pounds. That's how much grass a cow will eat in one day. Foraging.
Yeah.
So thanks y'all for joining our breakout session.
Thank you.
We'll be here all day.
Honey, are you new?
When it comes to the homesteading part of the presentation, we're just going to be like, what do you guys want to talk about? Because there's really not much that we kind of haven't really tripped on over the 15 years, especially with the way how we attack things. We research nothing. We're just like, oh, milk prices are going to go up, so we went and bought a dairy cat. And it was
Spent the next 5 days trying to figure
trying to figure out how to milk it. It was bad. It was very bad. But I mean, that we honestly believe that the best teacher is experience. Is getting out there, getting it done, and stuff like that. When it comes to the predator control aspect of it, I ran a nuisance wildlife removal business for like 10 years out of Augusta. I've been trapping wildlife since, quote my grandfather, when she asked, when I was old enough and strong enough to hold on to his boot, smart enough not to let go. So about like that, huh? So, whatever, I mean, what questions do you guys kind of have?
Does anybody have any specific things that they wanted to know? Go ahead.
You said raccoon?
That's it.
Here is the most important thing that I'll probably say the entire time when we're talking about predator control. Everything in the animal kingdom follows its food source. It doesn't matter if it's a mouse or if it's us. They're going to go to where the food is. Now, the difference when it comes into when you're dealing with predators, it's all about the calories. So the more difficult that you can make it, where that raccoon has to spend more calories than what he's thinking he's going to get from a chicken, it'll knock a lot of that down. Raccoons are very easy to get into a cage trap. One of my most favorite baits is dried cat food. You can put that in just cut the bottom off of like a little water bottle like that, cut the bottom off, put it in there, put it in the very center of the cage. The back of the cage. Behind, because you got that foot plate that'll sit up like this, the trip plate, set it back right about here. But this is the most important part if you're going to try to catch him in a cage. The most important part. Right here, in front of that foot plate, take a stick and just run it through the side of the cage and in there. Because that's going to stop him from placing that paw right there in front of the plate and then stepping over the plate. That's going to force him to step on that plate because he doesn't want to step on that stick because he's afraid that that stick's going to snap, and he has predators that are after him too. So he's going to try and be as quiet as he can be, but get him to step on that. To be able to get him to step on the plate, it'll close the door behind him, and he is going to make a mess. By the time that you guys come out there in the morning, there's going to be all the way around that cage. It's going to be dug up, messed up, so don't get him near. Don't put that cage near the fencing. Don't put that cage near the garden bed or anything that you want to stay nice, because they may roll it, but you're gonna have a mound of dirt inside that cage, probably about like that.
Because they'll pull it.
Because they'll just keep pulling it in. And if you get a big boar coon, I've seen them snatch the sides of those cages in two, especially if it's a have-a-heart. I do not like the have-a-heart cage traps because they can reach out around them and pop the lock on them, a good straw coon, and they just push themselves right out.
Yep.
The brand of cage trap that I like, that I stand behind, is the Tomahawk brand. Now they're more expensive, but he's not getting out of that cage.
We've had ours for like 20 years, and they still work just as good as the day we bought them.
Yeah, but
I think the website is like livetraps. It's not Tomahawk.
It's livetraps.
It's like livetraps.com is where you can find those.
But the easier way to trap that raccoon is in what they call a dog proof or a coon cup. It basically, the Duke is like $11 or $12, and you'll have it for forever. It's like basically it's like a metal pipe with like a rat trap in it, but it forces the raccoon to get down in there, and it's target specific. You're only going to catch a coon, possum, and God forbid a skunk. But you're going to he has to reach in there and grab it, and the Duke trigger is a pull. So when he's reaching down in there and grabbing the marshmallows or the cat food, he's going to grab hold of that trigger, and it's going to pull him, and it's going to do what they call a deep arm catch. It's going to catch him up there. So all the parts that when you hear about a raccoon chewing his arm off, it's all down here because there's not much there. It's just bone
It's
and
literally bone and just a little bit of skin.
Little bit of skin and some veins, because they're walking in the creeks in the wintertime, so there's not a lot there. So they're willing to sacrifice that part to get out of the trap. But when you're catching him deep like this, he's not going to come all the way up here.
And he can't really reach it, you know.
And you're only going to catch them, whereas in using cat food, honey bun, whatever, you may catch your cat, neighbor's cat, your dog, neighbor's dog, anything like that. But with that coon cuff, you're not going to catch them. And then the other thing that I would tell is find the game trail that they're coming, the path that they're making it to that chicken coop, and go down that path 5 yards, 10 yards, set your traps back in there, and catch them before they even get to the coop.
And now with that, you're also going to have...
You're going to have a catch circle.
A catch circle, because it anchors into... It's got the
But
trap.
however your anchoring system that you're going to put on it. Like I like to use airline cable with it secured to the trap and then a loop at the bottom, so I can just loop it around the tree and do it real quick. I can set like half a dozen of them in like 5 minutes. And they're fast, they're easy. But the major benefit to them is that they're target specific. You can put them out there and you don't have to worry about catching the chickens in them. You don't have to worry about catching your cat or your dog or anything like in there. Because if it doesn't grasp, it's not going to get caught by that dude. And that's the first thing that I would do, because now you got the raccoons, they already know that coop is there. And so they're probably out there gossiping, trying to tell more raccoons about the coop. And if they're able to just walk right in there, it's an easy meal for them. And so they're going to kind of spread the word around. But if you can catch the ones this season, catch them, dispatch them. I mean, you can eat raccoon. It's halfway decent, especially if you barbecue it. You can catch them. You can do that too.
Yeah. You can, yeah.
Yeah. One of the things, like I did a video about doing a predator resistant chicken coop, because there's no such thing. Nobody can build you a 100% predator proof chicken coop 100% of the time. Because all it takes is for the population to expand and that there's more raccoons than there is natural food sources for them, they start getting hungry. They don't, at that point in time, all bets are off. You know, they don't care about getting shocked, they don't care about barbed wire, they don't care about fencing, they'll hurt themselves to get to some food. And so, some of the tricks that I've done is I have taken like the welded wire and bent it down at the bottom of the coop and come out 6 to 8 inches all the way around it. That stops your diggers. That stops your gray foxes, your skunks, possums. And then I literally encourage the grass and stuff to grow over top of it, because once they start digging, they're going to catch that fencing and they're going to get frustrated, because then they start burning more calories and they'll stop. I also at the top, you kind of make it look like a prison. Take some PVC and angle it out and run electric lines. Run your electric wire, do it 3 or something like that, and only run them about that far apart. And then as you come down the fence, I'd do one more about medium, one in the middle, and then one at the bottom, and that will help prevent your climbers, because they're going to grab a hold of that wire.
Just like they're doing now, pulling through.
They're going to grab a hold of that wire, and if you got a strong enough charger, it's going to bite them, and it's no longer worth it to them. If somehow they miss the bottom one, and they start climbing your fence and they go up, that one that you got in the middle may hit them in their back or their belly. It zaps them, it's going to spook them, they're going to take off. And then with the ones with the top, they're going to have to grab a hold of them to try to get through it, and you can nail them then. But the absolute most important thing is every night, put those chickens back up in that coop with a good secure door, and they'll stop losing them. Almost instantly. Get them up every night with a good secure door inside the chicken coop that you guys might already have, and that'll stop it. As long as that raccoon can't get in that coop, you know, eventually he'll carry on. Now, if you got the land to be able to do it, the best way, like when we moved up to ours where we got 21 acres now, the best thing that I ever did was I created what I call a food buffer, a food barrier. That's at the very back portion of my property in the woods. When we're done planting the garden, I'll take whatever seeds are left in the packages, and then I take them out there in that area and I throw them. Whatever comes up, comes up. But I don't ever touch it. Because what will happen is the mice and the rats will come to those vegetable plants, those blackberries, raspberries, tomatoes, whatever you can get to come up, they're going to come and eat that. Well, that's half your battle right there. Because, like I said, everything follows its food source. So your snakes and stuff are out there looking, and a snake can detect rat urine and mouse urine for like a quarter of a mile. So they're going to be geared in towards your little food buffer, food barrier. So you got the snakes coming there, then you've got your birds of prey, who 90% they're eating mice, rats, and snakes, small rodents. So they're going to come to them. Then your raccoons are going to come, because raccoons are omnivores, just like a lot of us. They're going to come there, they're going to eat the vegetables, they're going to eat the fruits and berries, they're going to eat the bugs that are coming on there, they're going to eat the mice and the rats, and so they're going to be there. And then your canines and your cats are coming there because they eat pretty much everything that I've already said, you know, and that helps out tremendously. I mean, we haven't had a predator attack since we started that. So if you can designate a buffer, like maybe 10 by 30 feet area, that you can take seeds that you don't have the room for them anymore, you're going to maybe save them for next year and throw them out there. Because let's be honest, ain't none of y'all going to save them for next year. As soon as that Baker Creek catalog comes out, y'all like, woo! And y'all
get more seed.
and so take them out there, throw them out there, because that gives you that buffer, that gives you that barrier, not only for your chickens and your ducks and stuff, but even for your own vegetable garden. Mm-hmm. Because even the deer will come to that then, and then hunt over it the following season.
Yeah, rabbits. We see a lot of rabbits come through, like the blackberry bushes and stuff, so we never have an issue with the rabbits coming up, you know, to the actual garden, because And we not only have it there, but the surrounding part of our property, at least on the one side where the garden is, we have blackberries there too. And so it kind of gives them something to eat to leave our stuff alone. So
You were talking about putting the wire up around the coop. Is there a particular power strength that you need for one predator over another, or?
Not really. We've been doing this a long time, and we have probably used every charger out there on the market. We've used the one company, I forget what it's called, but they were supposed to be the very first
Carmelac, I think is the name.
charger out there. And by none, and I'm not just saying this because they sponsor our channel, but I'm saying this because we've had their chargers now for well over almost 2 years, and they still punch as hard as the day that they came out of the box. But the Gallagher chargers are by far top notch. Our Premier One stuff was dead in 6 months, and we couldn't use it again. Piece of trash. It wasn't even a good anchor that was out there. The Gallagher chargers now for the Predator stuff, I would use an S40 or an S100 in those, somewhere between like half a joule and a full joule to just hit them. Because when it comes to the Predators, you want to hit them and hurt them. Because, like for example, with deer, when people ask, how do I keep deer out of my garden? I tell them, run 2 or 3 strands of electric wire around your garden, take aluminum foil, fold it over the top and the middle strand in different pieces, and then smear a bunch of peanut butter on it. Leave it alone. Because them deer will come out, they'll start to lick that peanut butter, that tongue hits that aluminum foil, the aluminum foil is wrapped on the charger, it's going to punch them in the tongue, it's going to scare the bejeebas out of them, and now they've registered your garden with pain and being uncomfortable and being scared, and they'll stay away from it. It's no different than, how many of us have watched our dogs lean up against or back up against the electric fence, or even our own livestock, and then they leave that good 6 inch to a foot there. I'm not even going over there. It's the same concept. Same concept.
We watched a boy pig at that, back up into one and like get bit by the wire and not want to go anywhere near it for a while afterwards.
When it comes to your chargers and how much oomph, it's going to be whatever you can afford. Don't put yourself in a hole for it, because you can always buy an $11 trap and it'll take care of 90% of your predator problem. But it's something that you want that's going to reach out there and tag them really good. The Gallagher solar ones, we've had, last year we had 2.5 weeks of solid rain, and the chargers didn't quit. They hold their charge, they do really, really, really well. And you can go on our channel, anywhere on our channel, there should be a link in the description somewhere, and I think you get like 10% discount by going through with us. But
Those models are solar?
Yes, they are.
Yes.
Solar.
Solar, yeah.
They have
plug-in ones.
Yeah.
But then you got to worry about running extension cords or getting power and stuff.
Or if you have power there, then that's great, because then it's stronger.
Yeah. And the solar ones are usually always pulse.
Yeah.
Where your plug-in ones, sometimes most of those are just a solid current.
Direct current.
So it's really, but you want something that's gonna hurt them, because you want them to equivocate that coop with pain, not with food. You want them to forget that there's food in there, and you want them to register that when I go over there, it hurts. And it's like how I try to explain with people when we did a snake treatment on their place. The stuff that we would spread out, I kept telling everybody that the Jacobs gland on the snake would get irritated by the stuff that we would spread out. It would be like me grabbing you by the back of the head and keep jamming like cayennes in your mouth and making you eat them. You would eventually stay far away from me or shoot me, one or the other. And so the snakes were the same way. And that's what you want with with the predators. You want them to look at that chicken coop and say, that hurts. I'm not going over there.
Not today.
So hawks.
Oh wait, she has coyotes. We'll do hawks in just a second.
What about?
Get my chicken.
How do you know it's a coyote?
We seen it.
Okay.
Seen it? So chicken, when you get there, chickens are just gone. Coyotes are extremely difficult to track. Extreme. I mean, you have to be over the top conscious about the odor that you leave behind. In all honesty, when it comes to them, you do like what I said with trying to predator resistant the coop, you're running stuff. But
They're free range.
I would just shoot 'em.
Your chickens are?
I would get, you can literally download an app that you can get on your phone that does like a predator call and give you a distress rabbit, distress squirrel, stuff like that, and just shoot them and drop them. Yeah, because they'll come to it, they can't help themselves.
Yeah.
They'll come to it and then just shoot them. And because in all honesty, because the danger that you have with coyotes, both here in South Carolina and in Georgia, is that when you live in the country, you've got those irresponsible people that come out there and they drop off their dogs because they're going to take care of them. Well, a canine is a canine is a canine. Doesn't matter if it's a Chihuahua or if it's a wolf. 7 days after that dog gets dropped off, it's feral. It has reverted back to its wild DNA. Now, if it's a big enough of a dog or if it's a female, it will get in with a pack. And the problem is that when it gets in with a pack, they call them coy dogs now. They're no longer afraid of it because they still have a little bit of that the memory of the domestic that this person is trying to hurt me, but it's hungry, it's a tiny person, so I'm going to go eat it. And that's when they get into the packs of 5 or more, that's when they become extremely dangerous. That's why I just tell everybody, I could come over to your place, spend 2 or 3 weeks with you and teach you how to bed the trap, how to set the trap, how to bait it, how to do everything like that, but I still couldn't guarantee that you would catch it.
They're very tricky. I mean, like he said before, he's been trapping since he was a little one. And it's still, we had a coyote like when we first got there, we had to thin out the population because it hadn't been used in years. And so we had to come in and kind of thin things out. And even with him knowing what to do,
he was solid black and had a white diamond on his chest.
Yeah.
I wanted him so bad. So bad I wanted him. And it was to this day. I mean, I still haven't caught him. You know, but now we've been there 8 years, so he's probably passed on. And the glimpse of ones that I see on trail cams every now and then, probably 2nd, 3rd generation from him. But he was a just gorgeous alpha male. But he was smart, you know, and he was cautious. And you know how we all like to brag about our dogs, about how smart our dog is, how smart, you know. I mean, we can train a dog to go to the refrigerator and get us a beer and bring it back. You know, dogs are not dumb. And when every day, when they're out there and it's survival for them 24/7, something just doesn't even look right, or doesn't even, if it just smells a little bit off, they'll cautious and they'll paw at it and paw at it.
we've seen them dig them up. Like
I've
they
had my
know
traps.
exactly what.
You guys can look at the stuff. I have the box with the links, the company's name. But this is a coil. And when I filled these, I love it like this big size jar. I had it filled with pickles that were, of course, popping up to the top. I just put it in there, and that's where it stayed. But like, I could press this down, and it pressed all the vegetables down, and then I just grabbed the lid and screwed it on. And this actually, as the vegetables, they will soften. This will just keep, just automatically. And so these are so wonderful. And they're whatever they're made out of, because I said don't use anything metal. These are made just for ferments. This would be the exception. I actually need to find out what these are made out of. And these lids are really amazing. They, which actually I'm going to talk about that later. I haven't got to that part yet. Then the last thing is I wanted to talk about airlock. Well, you know what? This, at the very end when I talk about burping the jars, that's where that comes in. So I'll wait on that too. So that is keeping everything below the brine is super, super important. But if something does, come up, just skim it off and enjoy your ferment. And then the last one is, once you like the taste, move it to cold storage. So cold storage would be anything below 55 degrees but above freezing. So the normal place that would be a refrigerator, or if you have like a root cellar somewhere, you're fortunate enough to have that where it's cool, then keep it in there. So I'm going to explain just a minute about the storage of our vegetables. So when they're just sitting out, if they're just sitting out in room temperature, they're fermenting, and they're depending on the warmer the temperature, the faster they're going to ferment. Now they're not going to go bad. I mean, these could last for years. They're not. I've had ferments that I've had for like 2 years after I made them. They're not going to go bad. What they're going to do is they're going to become very, very strong, and they're going to become sour, like that kimchi that we ate, and it was delicious. And then I put it in the refrigerator, forgot about it, and we pulled it out like 4 months later, and we were like, it was so sour. It was just like we didn't. I don't like sour things. So the warmer it gets, the more sour it gets, and the more developed the tastes become. So if you keep it at a colder temperature, it doesn't stop fermenting, but it slows it way, way down, almost to where it does stop. So you can, once you taste it, like, oh, I really like the taste of this, put it in your refrigerator, put it somewhere under 55 degrees, root cellar, and it will hold it at that, and it will preserve your vegetables for a super long time. The other thing, which I'm not going to get too much into the science of it, is like you can control it by the amount of salt you use. So it's kind of like the salt and the temperature is what slows it down or what speeds it up. And I do want to mention that I have 2 books that you guys can take a look at. But if you're really interested in fermenting, this one's more sciencey, and I loved it. It taught me a ton, and both of these books talk about all things fermenting, whether we're talking about vegetables, beverages, condiments, bread like sourdough, everything. But I'm just talking about the chapters of vegetables. But this book here, she explains, this one's more sciencey, but this one she's more just like down to earth, just like a homesteader that, doesn't get too sciencey. But she's, I don't know if any of you guys buy products from Cultures for Health, she actually writes for them. She's really, really, really good, but she explains really well the balance between salt and temperature. And so if you're really wanting to dive into this, just a 1 page and you'll understand the whole idea of that. So usually the fermentation, it's like after 3 to 5 days, I start tasting it, and if I like the taste, then I cap it off and I put it in the refrigerator. And once again, I just want to say again, don't worry about opening it going like, oh, I don't know, what if it's bad? It will smell sour, it smells fermented, yeasty, but if it doesn't smell horrible, then it's just fine to taste. So when we preserve, there's 2 ways that you would do it. It depends on the size of the vegetable. So I'll real quick tell you about if you have a whole product, like I'm saying the garlic cloves or a cucumber or like carrot sticks, those would be whole products. So you would add your seasoning so you're going to use a pour over brine. So you're going to make your ferment, and then you're going to make that salt water where you're adding purified salt into water. You're going to mix that up, and I want to say, like, I'm not giving any recipes. I am putting together a workshop that is going to go onto my website. So, and it's free. I have a freebie vault, and every month I drop stuff in there. So, and then you can look at these books, and so I'm not going to give you exact recipes. I'm just telling you guys kind of a concept of it. So you're going to put things like your dill and your garlic and your seasoning. You're going to pack your carrots. You're going to make a brine where it's simply just water and salt, stir it up, and you're just going to pour that brine right over until, the carrots and then the brine comes up to here, and you're going to cap it off, and you're done. I mean, that is so quick. Then with the other technique, it's if you have things that are shredded, think like sauerkraut, kimchi. This book has an amazing taco kraut. It's like sauerkraut, but it's like all the taco and the salsa ingredients. So that is not a pour over brine. What you're going to do with that is you're going to shred all your vegetables, which I do in the food processor. It's done really quick. I put it in a big bowl, and you can do this one of two ways. You can pound it, which you probably heard people, they have to pound the sauerkraut. So you've got your cabbage, you put your salt, because the salt's going to break it down. You put that starter culture I was talking about, and then you pound. You just pound for 10 or 15 minutes. And you just keep pounding, and it breaks it down. The salt is going to draw the liquid out of the cabbage, and it's going to create its own brine. I don't like to stand and pound things for 15 minutes, so I usually, like you can, I'll shred my cabbage, I'll put the salt, mix it all up, I'll put a tea towel over it, and I'll go to bed. And in the morning I woke up, and it is completely broken down. That just seems easier to me, but if you want to get it done, then you're going to have to pound it. You can put the salt over it and leave it for 15-20 minutes, and it will start breaking it down. You can pound it for a while and come back to it. You don't have to just do it straight, but if you do leave it, the fruit flies will find it. So put a towel over it. So once it is pounded and it's ready to go, you're going to pack it into a jar, and you're going to put so much in there, and you're going to just like smash it down. Like, you don't want any air pockets, and you want to get as much in there as you can, and it's going to be tight, because that is, as you're doing that, the juices are going to come out of it and come to the top. And so once you get it to about here, then I like to take a glass jar and just press it as hard as I can and get it in there. But before I put this on, there'll be juices left in the bowl. Pour those juices over and completely cover the sauerkraut. So it'll be sauerkraut, and then it'll be its own juices, so it's self-brining. Put the lid on it, and then you're done. So those would kind of be the two techniques, whether it's a whole product, you make the brine, or whether it's a shredded thing, you pound it and it creates its own brine. Let me see, where was I? Boy, I got through all of these without even looking. Okay, the next step is you're going to leave it at room temperature, and it's going to start fermenting. You're going to, as it's fermenting, like I said, the bacteria that's eating the simple sugars in the vegetables is going to be, the byproduct is the lactic acid, is going to be the bubbles. And that bubbles is actually really important, because it's that little bit of air between the top of the brine and your lid. There's oxygen. Those bubbles are going to displace that. Oxygen, so it's going to be harder for bacteria to get in there. So as those bubbles are being formed, pressure's building up. Think like a 2-liter bottle, and it's just like a soda, and it's so tight, and when you open it, it's just like fizzing everywhere. Kind of the same idea. I've actually had, if you don't burp these, they could actually explode. So you do need to burp them. So, but you don't want to lose all the carbon dioxide in there. You want to keep it in there, so it's just a quick twist, and then tighten it back up again. I burp them you only have to burp them for the first 3 to 5 days. During that time is when it's building up. And some of the days, it actually depends on really hot days. I remember we were burping them 3 times in the day, and I'm like, these things are crazy. They were building up so much. Actually, the full moon and it actually pulls more. It's like when I've made ferments, I always get that mixed up. The full moon?
Yeah, but the music's on. No, the music's on.
However that goes.
You have to burp them more.
You have to burp them more. But anyway, you just burp them. Once the fizzing dies down, then it's not going to create that anymore. But that's why I wanted to talk about these products real quick. These lids that come with these coils, they actually have little holes in this plastic thing, and the gases will actually just dispense it. So you don't have to.
It's like a diaphragm, like a silicone or whatever diaphragm, BPA-free diaphragm that just lets the gases out.
It lets the gases out, but nothing can come in. So that's really good, and that's the same thing with this. It's called a pickle pipe. These are holes on it, and you just put it on you know, and put your ring on it, and the gases will come up through the hole, but it won't let anything in. So you don't have to burp them that way if you use something like that. So, and it's like, when are they done? There's no set time. Like I said, they could be longer in the winter, shorter in the summer. It's just when you like the taste. Now, if you're new to it, you haven't really had fermented taste and you're not used to it, it is a taste that your body acquires. Like, you do get used to it and you actually start craving it. Like in the beginning, we were like, sauerkraut, we didn't like it, but we ate it, and now it's just like, oh, it sounds so good. Like, your body recognizes the goodness in it, and you start wanting it and craving it. So just probably if you're new to it, I would ferment it for less time. If you want more of that flavor, and it actually is a higher probiotic count, I mean, you will get more out of it if you have it a stronger flavor, then let it go for longer. But I usually taste it around 3 to 5 days, and it's going to taste tangy. It could be a little bit fizzy. It could be a little bit limp, or the brines could start getting cloudy. That's all totally fine.
And as they sit in the fridge or in the cellar over weeks to come, they acquire
different tastes.
Different tastes.
They go through different stages. So you can kind of, it's a fun little experiment, you know, to watch that. Now I talked about it, I'm going to talk real quick about it going bad, and I'm going to talk about how to introduce it to your family if you're not used to it, and then I'll wrap it up. But like I said, the smell is the #1 thing. That other thing, in the beginning I got really nervous because one time there was a white layer on top, and I thought, oh, that's mold. But that's actually okay. It might even actually just be a natural yeast. It could be fine. Just pull it off, and you're perfectly fine. Just skim that discolored off. And sometimes, like the sauerkraut, I can tell like this much of it is a little bit different of a color, so I'll even skim that off. But it is perfectly fine to eat. The only thing you want to look out for is if you see something with green, yellow, blue, black, pink or red molds, just get rid of it. Don't fool around with that. I mean, you don't have to like discard the jar. It could even go in the compost heap. It's not like toxic, like if you got botulism or something. Just throw it out and don't eat it. So I have a couple suggestions. If you're not used to ferments, if your kids aren't used to ferments and you want to start introducing them, I did this to our kids, and they kind of didn't even know that they were being introduced to ferments. I did carrots. Carrots are so sweet. They really, you know, balance out that tart, and you can't tell as much that they're being fermented. And I only fermented them for 1 day. No, it doesn't have the nutritional benefits as it would if you let it, but if they're not eating them, they're not going to get them. So 1 day is better than no days. So give them to them for only 1 day of ferment. And then after they get used to that, ferment them for 2 days. And then 3 days, and they'll just not even realize what's happening. And pretty soon their body will recognize it, and they will start craving it. So I just suggest to probably start with carrots and just don't ferment it. So, you know, just in summary, it's just thinking about that bacteria. That bacteria needs to be protected. It needs to be in a good environment. So just a sterile jar. I mean, you don't have to sterilize it. Just a good clean washing. Clean your hands, clean your utensils. Just to, you know, give it a good start. And then the salt is going to protect it. The starter is going to inoculate that brine to help it while it's trying to get strong. And then as it grows and it begins to proliferate and fill that jar, it will be able to protect itself. So I kind of just, when I think about that process, that makes so much sense. And like the same with my health, you know, we're trying to keep everything bad out, the bad bacteria, the toxic stuff, and keep all that out, and then inoculate our gut with these wonderful ferments. You really don't have to eat that much. One spoonful of it
for each meal
is like the equivalent of a bottle of amazing probiotics. It's really like hands down, it tops anything you can find in the market. So what we did with the kids is you just get a plate, you put a spoon on the plate and you ferment, and you just pass the plate around. Everybody gets their spoon. They got to eat it before they eat their dinner, and it's just a great way to just get them in. You know, maybe 2 times a day. 3 times a day, but just even 1 time a day is a really good idea, and that's just going to inoculate your gut. It's just going to help when the flu season, the cold season, you know, just stomach issues. And I mean, I'll say I had a history from not living a healthy lifestyle in the past, like serious gut problems, like really, you know, I was in a really bad way. And these are, they're kind of what restores your gut. Like if you have health issues, like I suggest, start eating sauerkraut. And I even take the brine, and I drink a little bit of the brine because it's like liquid gold. So anyway, I have, you know, different of the products. You can look at them if you want, but I just wanted to mention, like I said, I am making a workshop with all this information. I'll be doing demonstrations, there'll be recipes, there'll be all the links for everything. So if you're interested in being able to see that when it comes out, you can put your email address on here just so that I can put you on my email, because every week I send an email out saying like what's new, and I'm always putting like, I mean, I put stuff on my blog every week, but I put, I work on projects and I put them in a freebie vault once a month. So probably within the next couple weeks, a whole workshop on this will be put on the blog, so everything will be there.
Tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time to plant one is now. So trees, the one thing, if I was purchasing new land, the first thing that I would think about planting or doing before I did anything would be planting trees. And the reason why I say that is because trees take a long time to grow. But trees are permanent, unlike a garden, which must be planted yearly. And and then you usually plant trees once. You know, you don't have to keep planting them. You don't have to keep doing it. And it's a long-term food source. So it takes a little while for them to establish before they start producing food. But once they do start producing food, they produce food for a long time. When you think about something like pecan trees, I mean, 40, 50 years, a long time they produce food for. And so you plant them once and you can harvest from them for a long time, and it can provide a food source not only for you, but also for your animals. So you think about the limbs that come off of it when you prune them. You think about the produce, like let's say you have produce that hits the ground and maybe it's gotten a little fermented or spoiled. You can feed that to your animals. So it also provides food source for them. It also adds shade. So it adds shade. You can shade your house with it. You can plant it close to your pens where it can provide shade for your animals. You know, your chickens, your goats. You can plant it inside your pens, your pastures or whatever, and then what falls off, the animals can eat as well. So, and I told you about you were saying that you were too old to plant trees. There's another quote right here says, "Blessed is he who plants a tree, whose shade he will never sit. Let old men plant trees, though they may never expect to eat the fruit of them. Ambition impels men to do which not benefit them except in their own consciousness." So you're not just planting trees for you, you're planting them for future generations. Okay, so trees, they come in 2 basic ways. You got bare root, you got containers. So bare root trees is like a seedling. It was started from a seed. It was planted in like a row or something, and then when it's harvested in dormant season, like in the fall and winter, and they dig it up and they ship it to you that way. That's bare root. Those are typically young trees, less than a year or 2 old. Container trees are what you get from your nurseries a lot of times. Sometimes they can be 3 or 4 years old. So container root trees can bear fruit quicker, but I think in my opinion, the bare root trees grow faster. You plant them in the ground, and the first year or 2 they put down the roots, and then they take off and they really start growing. Where a container tree, it takes them a little bit while longer. That's like if I was planting landscape shrubs or something like that, I tend to lean to buying the smallest one I can find, the youngest one, because they will take off quicker and they will eventually catch up and surpass the bigger ones. So, like I said, they'll take the bare root trees or trees that were started in the ground, and then if you can find bare root trees, most people agree that those are the best ones to buy and plant. And so typically they are 1 to 2 years old. And a lot of times you have to order bare root trees from places, and I got a good resource for y'all. I don't know if where most of y'all live, but the Abbeville Extension, the Clemson Abbeville Extension, they have a tree sale once a year. So you can call them and get put on their email list, and in November they'll send you a list of trees that they have. Apple trees, pear trees, plum, pecan trees. So they got a ton of them, and they're relatively cheap. You know, $8, $9 for apple tree, 3, 4, 5 foot tall. And what you do is you order them, and then they'll send you another email in January when it's time to pick those up. So if you're interested in buying some real nice bare root trees, you can check that resource out. So digging and preparing the hole, you want to dig the hole deeper and wider. And when I plant my trees, I put a little bit of compost in there, and I mix it with the native dirt. But you don't want to put a lot in there. And the reason why I say that is that compost is not dirt. A lot of people think compost is dirt, but compost is not dirt. It's organic materials that's been broken down, and they will continue to break down as you put them in the hole. They will mix with the dirt, and what can happen is your tree can sink, and you don't want your tree to sink. You don't want the root flare to be below the ground level. So you want to always good to keep your to dig your hole out deeper and bigger than your root ball, and get that dirt really loose around the sides and in the bottom. And like I said, my screen, I can't see it real good because of the sun. Like I said, compost is organic matter. Worms eat it, and it breaks down. And then, like I said, if you add too much, your tree can be below ground level. And we'll talk about why that's bad here on this slide. So, don't want to plant the tree too deep. And another thing that I recommend, that I learned, this is a permaculture practice, is don't plant the species beside each other. You want them close by, but not like directly close by. You want to make sure that you do not plant the tree too low on the ground. You want the flare of the trunk. If you look, you can see like the flare of this trunk right here is right at the ground level. You don't want that to be below the ground level. That can cause disease in your tree, and it can cause the roots to come up out of the ground. And you can see here on the picture here, in this picture there's a shovel laid across the hole as a straight level. You can use a board or a stick, whatever you got on your hand to use as a straight level. So that's one good measure you can use, is by laying that shovel across. And also, most of your fruit trees and nut trees, most of your trees you buy are grafted trees, unless you buy like a dogwood or like a flowering type tree. So, you know, trees, if you raise a tree from a seed, like if you go get an apple seed from that you've got a piece of produce on, that apple will not make the exact same tree that fruit come from. It won't be true to nature. It's just like, you know, having kids, they're all gonna look a little different from us. They're not what's that word called?
Identical?
They're not, they're twins, but they're not identical. But you get what I'm saying. So trees, they graft trees. You can take a piece of the limb, what they call a scion, and graft it onto a rootstock, and then you can get identical to what the parent was. And that's how they make, when they get like a Honeycrisp apple, that's how they reproduce that, is by grafting it. So when that graft union, normally it's like 1 or 2 inches above the root flare. You definitely don't want that in the ground, because that can, you don't want water and moisture getting on that. You want it to be above it. Okay. So now we're going to talk about compost and mulch a little bit. So I just want to make a note here that I'm completely sharing my process. There's so many different ways to do this, and this is just kind of like my process and what I'm experimenting with. There's no right or wrong way to do this, and I think everybody should experiment with different things and try and see what works for you. But I like to add compost around my trees first. I plant them, and then I'll either put cardboard down and compost on top of that, or vice versa. A shovelful or 2 of my compost, and that's like me putting fertilizer on it. That's what I use to feed my trees. But most of the compost I put around trees will go around the top. Like I said, I'll put a shovelful around it. And you can see this is actually my compost that I make at home. Right here, that's in my hand. And I don't know, does any of y'all know what biochar is? Y'all heard about it? So I mix a little bit of biochar in with mine as well, and while it sits. So there are two types of compost that people use. You have a fungal dominated compost, and then you have a bacteria dominated compost. And most of the compost that you might be familiar with is more of a bacteria dominated compost. That would be like you putting in your garden scraps, you putting in leaves, wood, chicken manure, rabbit manure. So that's a bacteria. It'll get really hot, and it'll stay hot for several weeks. Has any of y'all ever heard of Johnson-Sue bioreactor? Y'all heard of that? So Dr. David Johnson and his wife, I don't know her first name, but her last name is Sue, and that's why it's called Johnson-Sue. So they're soil biologists, and they come up with this way to make this fungal dominated compost. So they make this little contraption here. It's sitting on pallets, and it has tubes in it, inside of it, and those tubes have holes in them. So what they do is they take their wood chips and their leaves, and they soak them in water, and then they fill up this barrel looking thing here. That's actually concrete mesh with landscape fabric, or actually it's geotextile fabric on the inside. And they'll let it sit for 2 or 3 days after they put stuff in there, and they'll pull the tubes out. And those holes will stay in there. And what it does is it creates air. It allows air to move in and out. And they'll let that sit. It'll heat up for a couple of days, and then it'll get cold, and it'll stay cold. And then after it gets cold, they'll put worms in there. So the purpose of this is to make a fungal dominated compost. And they take that and they do all kind of stuff with it. And there's more steps to it that you can read up. It's a long rabbit hole that you can go down with this, but basically big ag companies are starting to use this, and they're spraying it on their corn and their stuff, and it's a fungal dominated compost. So this next here, so and the reason why I'm talking about the fungal dominated compost will come up in a minute again, but adding mulch around your tree helps to retain the moisture, and the mulch will break down, and you will need to replace it once or twice a year. So I don't water my trees. The mulch keeps it moist where I don't have to water it. And then this breaking down process is feeding the tree with nutrients and minerals that's in the trees. You think about the trees, these trees have very, very deep roots. And you know, as this stuff's breaking down and the nutrients will keep seeping down in the ground, these deep roots will pull that back up, and it's in the tree. And when you cut that tree and shred it up or whatever, then it breaks down, it's bringing that back on top. And that process just starts over. Also, the mulch helps, not only does it help feed it, but it also helps keep the weed pressure down. You're not going to have zero weeds around your trees. You're going to have weeds pop up, but it also makes the weeds easier to pull because that ground's moist. Let's get the slide. The reason why I was talking about back to the fungal dominated compost, when you go out into the forest here, what do you see? You see leaves. I see dead limbs right here rotting. You know, people that forage, they go and look and they find falling over oak logs that have mushrooms growing on them. Mushroom is fungus. So when you go into a forest, it's a fungal dominated environment here. So most of the permaculture people that I follow and soil biologists and all, they recommend putting fungal dominated compost around your trees and bacteria dominated compost around your garden plants. And we talked about what the difference in the two is. And you don't have to have this Johnson-Sue bioreactor. I mean, you can just simply pile up a pile of wood chips and just let them sit there. It's a longer process. The bioreactor just speeds up that process. That's the whole purpose of it. But you can pile up a pile of leaves. You can pile up a pile of wood chips. Or you can mix them together and you get a fungal dominated compost. If you do that, if you pile up wood chips, you'll see mushrooms sprouting in them. That's fungus. They call that the teeth of the woods. And that fungus is chewing at that and breaking that stuff down. So I'm almost completely. But that's what you want around your trees, and they say that's what it likes. So here we're talking about fruit tree yields. This is a permaculture practice as well. I've started experimenting this a few years ago. But have any of y'all heard of fruit tree yields?
Yeah.
So basically, it's similar to like companion planting in your garden. So you companion plant, you put you plant a tomato plant, you put basil with it. Basil's supposed to make the tomatoes taste better, and it also helps repel bugs, and it becomes a trap plant. So that's kind of what this is. Now, if you go look at some people that do permaculture stuff, it looks like chaos, and I don't like that. I like order, and so I have mine in little rings, and they're all in rows. And so the reason why I say that is you can do it in a neat way, and you can do as much or as little as you want of any of this stuff, and that's why I was saying earlier it's an experiment. So in order to have a fruit tree guild, you got to have a few things. You got to have a tree, of course, in the middle. You got to have at least one insect attractor, one insect repeller, one nitrogen fixer, one nutrient accumulator, and a mulch maker. That's what makes a fruit tree guild. So the permaculturist tries to mimic nature. So if you look out in nature, if I look out across these woods here, I see ferns growing, I see grasses, I see herbaceous plants, all under here. You might even see vines, and you see ground cover. That's basically what you're mimicking here. When and a lot, have y'all heard about people doing like you plant in gardens and they plant a cover crop. So the reason why they're doing the cover crop is to get all those different roots. Farmers have tended to switch to a monoculture. They plant just corn out in the field and nothing else. But a lot of these new soil biologists are saying that you need all these different roots in the ground. They associate with each other, and they excrete this solution. It's like a carbohydrate solution. They call it exudates, and the bacteria and the bacteria and the fungus feed on that, and that's what causes the nutrient exchange in the plant. That's what causes the plant to uptake the nutrients, the fertilizer that you put on there, the compost. So it needs those different plants in the ground, and that's one thing that this helps by planting this fruit tree guild. But it also helps a lot of other stuff. So like I said, it's like companion planting, and you have plants that attract good insects like bees and ladybugs. So you might plant something that repels bugs like marigolds. One example you'll see in a minute, I have garlic planted around mine. So garlic helps repel deer and rabbits, but it's also something that you can harvest, so it's a dual purpose at that point. It also helps, I'm planting it around my fruit trees, so it helps repel borers. You have a lot of trouble with peach trees, and so this planting all this stuff is supposed to help eliminate the need for spraying your trees with fungicides and stuff like that. A more natural approach. Daffodils and tulips are great to plant. Not only do they look pretty, they provide flowers. Daffodils are one of the first flowers in tulips to bloom. They attract bees to help pollinate your trees, and they also help keep the grass. If you plant like a tight layer of daffodils around your ring, it helps the grass from creeping into there. Also, daffodils are known to repel moles and voles and stuff like that. Fruit tree guild can work dual purpose. Like I was saying about the planting the garlic, you can plant herbs around it. Herbs help repel, but you can also harvest the herbs. So we talked about nitrogen fixers a minute ago. It's one of the things you need. So nitrogen fixers put free fertilizer in the ground. There's several tree species that do this, shrubs and legumes, which is, when we was talking about cover crops, one of the things they put in cover crops is a legume, clover or beans. But there's trees that can do that too, but these trees are typically kind of aggressive. Like the mimosa tree is not a native tree, but it still has a purpose that it can use. Black locust is native, but it can be aggressive. And if you're seeking out like a black locust, you can find, there is people that that you can find that has thornless black locust, so you don't want it overtaken. But you have to control these, and one way they control these is by cutting these. So there's one technique they call coppicing a tree, which is cutting it down low, or you can pollard the tree, which is, have you ever seen people come in and murder crepe myrtle? They call it crepe murder. Yeah. Well, then next year it kind of looks like fist on top of it. So that's actually a technique called pollarding, and it causes that tree to flush out. And what you do at that point, if you plant, so what you would do is, let's say you had an apple tree and a pear tree, and then another row you had a peach tree back here, you plant a nitrogen fixer in between those, and it kind of helps it. And then you would come in and cut that tree down, and you can use those branches as a mulch layer. Remember we was talking about we needed a mulch maker in our list. We needed a nitrogen fixer, insect repeller, mulch maker, so this makes mulch. And then as those branches break down, it helps feed, but it's getting that nitrogen exchange in the soil. So it's taking nitrogen out of the air. There's like so much nitrogen in the air, and it's putting that nitrogen in the ground. That's what the nitrogen fixers do. So some of the nitrogen fixers, we have mimosa tree. And there's some redbuds is said to be a nitrogen fixer too, but I've read some things that said it wasn't, and some things that say it is. Black locust, autumn olive, a Kentucky coffee tree, mesquite, and elder. And there's also shrubs that are like you've heard people talk about moringa. I think that is a nitrogen fixer too, and there's some other ones. So we're going to talk about an accumulator now. So another part of this is the accumulator. Accumulators have deep roots. There's been said that some comfrey has roots 10 to 15 feet deep. So I plant, this is actually my comfrey plant right here. This is called, this is a Russian variety called, I think it's called Bakken 14. It don't reproduce. It can reproduce from roots, but the seeds don't spread and reproduce. It's sterile. And that's why I got this. And I got this from a guy in North Carolina called Co's Comfrey. You can order it from him. Or there's another guy named Billy at Permapastures Farms. He sells it too. I think he got his original from Co's Comfrey as well. Those are two sources that you can get it from. If you ever get one plant, you can dig it. Once it gets like this, you can dig it up, break a piece of the root off like this, stick it in the ground, it'll grow. You can move. But comfrey has so many uses. Right here I'm using it as a companion plant, so it produces flowers to attract bees. I can chop it and drop it as a mulch maker. Also, it's feeding. It's a dynamic accumulator, so it's pulling up all these nutrients out of the ground and it's putting it back in there. You can also use it to make liquid fertilizer. You can put it in a container of water and let it sit for a little while and ferment. You can spray that on your trees, on the ground. You can feed it to your animals. I've heard some people say that if you start feeding this daily to your animals, that the animals will not go to minerals no more, that this will replace the minerals for them. I don't have experience with that, so I don't know. But it's a forage for your plant. So in my mind, I have trees and I don't have animals yet, but in my mind, if I do get animals, the way I plan to set this up is I have these around my trees. I have some planted at my compost pile where I can chop them and put them in my compost. And then I'm going to plant a row of them where my chickens are. And each day I cut a plant, throw it in there, and then I move to the next plant. I'd have me a long row down my chicken pen, down the whole length of it. Cut every day I cut some, then by the time I get to the end, maybe that has 3 grows. That's my idea anyway. So some types of accumulators other than comfrey. We got chicory, chickweed, borage, dandelions, daikon radishes. If you know, daikon is also planted in cover crops. Moringa, sorrel, and yarrow, and I think that's it. There's more. That's just a short list. So this is my fruit orchard right here on one side, and then there's the image of the tree, what I'm talking about, like my fruit tree guild. On the right is the picture. So I have around 20 species in here. In my fruit orchard, I have apples and pears, prunes, I have mulberry, I have pawpaw trees. I got 3 pawpaw trees, and 2 of them were native I found in the woods. The other, I actually got 2 more, but I grew them from seed that I ordered, because pawpaw tree takes 2 unrelated trees to pollinate. And I have a nectarine. I think that's it. And I was talking a little bit about I got 2 figs, and I got pecans and ducks and chestnut. But I was talking a little bit a minute ago about not planting them together. So, you know, when I'm saying that, I mean like apple, 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 and then pear, pear, pear. So they say plant, you know, apple, pear, peach, prune, and start over, something like that, where it's not. They say if a bug's coming in, you know, sometimes bugs are specific, they're sticking out at certain plants, and that way they can't find the next one. It's easy. It just kind of makes it harder for them.
Alright guys, so that is basically the end of our event of the Homestead Southeast. We had a blast. It was a lot of information to take in. I'm so glad that I got all of the recording that I got, so that way I can just go back and always have it. And make sure you go check out their channels for everyone that I did get on camera. And we want to say, may God bless you like He has us, and y'all have a wonderful day.